I was at a party with one of my employees and her husband. She begins giving her husband's best friend tea about his part in a three-way between another mutual friend and a well-known barfly. I notice, out of the corner of my eye, her husband make himself small and quickly step away to find himself a new conversation. Turns out the three-way was actually his best friend, the barfly, and him. Also turns out pretty much the entire town, small town, knew. With the exception of my employee, his wife, who continually beats that dead horse to razz her husband's friends. My mother told me my biological father died 2 weeks after I turned 18. And that he was an auto mechanic, which I love to do. He visited me twice in my life. I don't have the balls to tell my dad that I'm not his biological son. I feel like it would tear him apart. Plus he acted like a father to me in my opinion. Edit. Since everyone thinks my mother is a whore. Or a SLT, allow me to clarify. My dad cheated on my mother more times. For my mother it was just one guy, biological father, but with my dad I saw him with 2 different women, who knows. Maybe he slept with more women that I never got a chance to see. When my dad and mom were still married. I was about 5-8 years old when I witnessed this. They are both now in different healthy relationships with their significant others. I'm happy for both of them. And I visit both of them as much as I can. My dad has had multiple affairs over the past 10 years. And I'm the only one in our family who knows. He does a lot of international business for work. And a few years ago I became suspicious of how he spends his time. So I got access to his email and phone records and found out about 3 long-term mistresses spanning a few years time period. All outside the US. I wanted to tell my mom. But I knew it would absolutely crush her. And despite his infidelity, he's always been a good provider father for us. And this information would have completely torn the family apart and left my mom in ruins. I never confronted him about it. And from what I can gather he had a change of heart and completely stopped about 2 years ago. But to this day I still sometimes wonder whether or not I did the right thing by not saying anything. Around 2000-2001. My roommate at the time used to take pictures of him and his girlfriend F-king and store them in his desk. This was way before everyone had phones or digital cameras. She's a very proper girl. And has always dressed conservatively. And gave off a vibe of being sort of quiet and boring. They have been married for about 12 years now with 2 kids. And is very much the super mom who's on the PTA. Kids Soccer League Board of Directors. Teaches Sunday school. Etc. The pictures were of her wearing a ball gag and him F-king her in the ass. While others of her with a huge black dildo in her mouth and a butt plug in. Lots of facials too. My friend would be shocked if he knew I saw these. And his wife would probably have a heart attack. I know my ex-wife cheated on her ex by sucking off the tour van driver when she was on vacation in Europe. Update. Just came back to see all the questions. I guess I should have said former I am a widower. After she died I was going through her things and I hesitated to read her personal journals, but we have a son together and I was trying to figure out which things might be good to keep for him to see, like a journal she kept when she was a kid of a great camping adventure she went on with her family, and which ones to burn, like the trip to Europe obviously, so that our son never saw them if something happened to me. Mostly what I learned is that she struggled a lot through her life trying to connect with men and with her own parents. She carried a lot of anger around and felt emotionally abused by the men in her life. She was also a free spirit who had amazing adventures. And some not so amazing adventures. She was like Jenny from Forrest Gump with some. But not nearly as many. Drugs. She was done experimenting by the time we got together. And no, she did not die from AIDS, since I know someone will ask. I also learned she did not feel that way about me. I was the one, based on her journals, that saved her and made her feel whole. The story about her trip to Europe does not surprise me. And our relationship was not perfect, and I guess that's all I have to say about that. When I was 19, I got into a fight with a junkie. Long story. He broke into a friend's house stealing stuff. And we tried to get it back peacefully. It didn't work out. He was injured in the fight. And tried to sue me. He lied under oath in court claiming the entire medical bill, which was actually covered by his insurance. And the DA settled on me paying his $350 medical bill copay. Then threw the case out. He overdosed and died the following weekend of that court date on $350 worth of Xanax. Pretty much everybody on one side of my family, grandma, cousins, etc., are all into some kind of BDSM. Some of them have custom furniture for it. The cousins would probably not like it if they knew I know. But I'm pretty sure grandma would not give a single flying fuck. Or maybe she would. She has a sex swing. My dad is the one who told me. And I completely believe him. I really don't want to know if he shares the interest. Not really a dirty secret. But I walked into a person's house and heard them and their spouse getting it on in their bedroom across the house really loudly. I quietly backed out and closed the door and left. This is someone who'd asked me to do some work for them, and I've been in their house many times and they'd told me to come on in and work on it, and I thought they knew I was going to be there soon. I knocked and called out their name. But their lovemaking was louder than my announcement. I think I'll bring it up at their funeral because they're a bit older than me and their kids would get a good laugh about it. My 16-year goody two-shoes sister got caught having sex in the car. Twice. At midnight I got a call from a cop asking if I was her mother. Sensing something was up, I said yes. He loudly told me, "We found your daughter having sex with a boy in a car." Shocked. Irritated. But laughing at her misfortune. I drove 20 minutes to pick her ass up. I pulled up to the parking lot of an apartment complex and saw 3 police cars. Lights still on. Not how it goes on in our neighborhood on a Saturday night. Close bracket. Her boyfriend sat on the curb talking to one of 3 cops. But still waved when he saw me pull up. Cute. A very serious cop with eyebrow way too plucked brought my crying sister to the car. It was clear I wasn't our mom, since I'm just a few years older. But my cunning small talk convinced him to let me take her home instead of calling our mom again. Double quote. On the way back she was all too grateful for protecting her from my mother's unforgiving wrath. She doesn't know 6 months later and confessed that they'd been caught elsewhere last weekend. In conclusion, I'm the slickest coolest sister you could have, and she is forever my bitch. A colleague of mine is a convicted rapist. It is an office setting. So there are lots of women around who might feel uncomfortable around him. HR knew about the rap either in his employment application or in the background check, but decided not to tell the hiring manager and blessed the hiring. A couple of folks did a search online later only to discover there was a shitty ton of coverage in the local news about the events that led to drugging and raping a young woman. I know one of my co-workers once had a kid who died in a fire. She was really depressed and had said she'd had to repair fire damage on her house. Quick internet search revealed the tragedy. I'll never tell anyone. Don't think anyone else knows. My step-uncle had a son and his wife had a son from a previous marriage as well. They got together and there was a fire in their house. Master was downstairs and kids' bedrooms upstairs. Both of the young sons died. I'll never have split bedrooms ever. I know that one of my friends is cheating on her husband with at least 5 other guys. One of them is her husband's best friend. She does it for attention. And to see if she is still attractive. She's 23. Jesus. That's desperation. I have a very similar story. I know of a woman who was married. Had sex with at least one other person. Got divorced. Had sex with me, 2 of my buddies and a co-worker of mine. Then was hanging out with 2 other people who I can only surmise she had sex with. I only have rumors though. Then she got married to a different co-worker of hers. Then not too very long ago, I literally witnessed her have sex with a 3rd co-worker of mine while at a party. There's a whole lot of Eskimo bros here. Oh yeah. She's pregnant now. My aunt had a baby boy when she was a teen. To this day, my grandparents are not aware of their first grandson's existence and still believe I am their first grandchild. The only other person she told was her sister, my mom. I only know because my mom told me. Where's the child now? When I was in 1st grade, my friend's brother in 4th grade wanted us to tie him up and embarrass him. We thought it was funny and played along. It was nothing sexual for us. But I remember his boner and wondering how it just stood up like that. But other than that, I didn't think much of that incident. Sometime during HS, I remembered all of a sudden and had a holy shit moment. Now we're older and we're friends. He probably thinks that I completely forgot about that incident, or maybe he forgot himself because there's no way he could act so naturally towards me otherwise. If I tell him now, he would just die of embarrassment. My dad took my mom to an intimate French restaurant one year about an hour from home on a Tuesday night since it was their anniversary. In walks a married co-worker with the co-worker's, not my dad's, secretary. The guy didn't see my dad, but my dad was pissed. My dad would use this as a lesson to us kids. He'd tell us that you never know who sees you doing something wrong, so be honest, ethical and decent. Had a friend middle school who legitimately had a crush on SpongeBob SquarePants. She let me use her computer a couple of times and I snooped through her shitty and found her stash of self-insert SpongeBob fanfiction. Found a couple of NSFW drawings as well. I couldn't really judge, I've had my fair share of animated crushes. But it was still a bizarre experience. My brother started the fire in our backyard that destroyed half the property and my dad's whole shed full of tools. The fire was centered around the very spot my brother had been sneaking out back at night to smoke. And he would always put the cigs out on the dry pile of logs stacked right next to him. I saw him out there every night cause my window pointed to the backyard. And I was planning to use the information for leverage to get him to take me to the messed up on Halo 2 launch night. But after the fire I kept my mouth shut. I could tell he felt guilty enough about it since he spent the whole week after helping my dad clean up the damage and repaint repair what they could. I still got Halo 2 at midnight.